Armies couldn't stop the creature. One human simply spoke to her. The emergency klaxons shredded the research station's usual quiet with mechanical screams. Dominic Rush's fingers flew across his console, pulling up security feeds from Medical Bay 3. What he saw made his breath catch. Not from fear, though fear would have been rational, but from the terrible beauty of it. She moved like violence given form. Blood streaked her orange and black striped skin, some of it clearly hers from the savage wounds across her torso and thighs. The tiger-like features of her face were contorted in a snarl that exposed wickedly sharp teeth. But it was her eyes that held him, amber and burning with something that looked less like mindless rage and more like desperate fury. 2 security officers lay unconscious behind her, their stun batons sparking uselessly on the floor. The restraint bed she'd been strapped to was nothing but twisted metal. "All personnel, seal your sections." Commander Brennan's voice crackled through the station-wide comm. "Security teams, converge on Medical 3. Non-lethal protocols are suspended." Dominic's jaw clenched. He tapped his comm badge. "Commander, belay that order." "Rush, get off this channel. This is a security matter." "She's trying to communicate," he said, eyes locked on the screen as the alien warrior stalked down the corridor, her movements following a pattern he recognized. "Look at the footage. Every vocalization, every gesture, it's structured. She's not just attacking, she's responding to something." "Responding to medical treatment by breaking 3 ribs and a collarbone," Roland Kane's gravel voice cut in. "Dom, I like you, but stay in your lab. We've got this." The feeds showed security teams taking positions at the corridor intersection ahead of her. Plasma rifles, not stun batons. Dominic was already moving, abandoning his linguistics lab and heading for the lift. His heart hammered against his ribs as the doors closed. The distress beacon they'd picked up 6 hours ago had been broadcasting in a language he'd never encountered. Standard protocol: retrieve, analyze, assist if possible. The fighter pod had been heavily damaged, barely holding together. Inside, they'd found her. Unconscious, bleeding, alone. Dr. Tanaka had called her stable but critical. Now she was tearing through the station like a caged predator who'd finally broken free. But predators didn't broadcast distress signals, and they didn't move with the linguistic precision he'd observed. The lift doors opened on Deck 7. The sound hit him first, a roar that resonated in his chest, making his teeth ache. Then he saw her. She'd reached the intersection where Kane's team had set up their perimeter. 4 security officers in tactical gear, weapons raised, fingers on triggers. "Stand down," Kane barked at the alien, his voice amplified through his helmet. "Get on the ground now." She crouched lower, her clawed hands flexing. Another roar, deeper this time, almost vibratory. Dominic's mind raced, processing the sound's frequency and pattern. A warning, but not of attack, of defense. "Chief, don't fire," Dominic said, approaching from behind the security line. "Rush, get back to—" "She's wounded and cornered. Look at her stance. That's not aggression, that's fear." "Fear that's already hospitalized 3 people," Kane countered. But his finger eased off the trigger just slightly. "What do you suggest? Ask her nicely to calm down." "Something like that." Before Kane could stop him, Dominic stepped around the security perimeter. The alien's eyes snapped to him immediately, her pupils contracting to slits. She snarled, a sound that started low and built to a threatening crescendo. Every instinct screamed at him to run. His legs trembled, but he held his ground. He'd spent 15 years studying how species communicated across the vast differences of biology and culture. He'd learned the clicking languages of the Viridian hive minds, the pheromone-based exchanges of the sulfur breathers, even the electromagnetic pulses of the Deep Space Collective. Every species had patterns. Every language had rules. She was speaking. He just needed to learn how to answer. Dominic dropped to one knee, lowering his height to something less threatening. Her head tilted fractionally. He forced himself to breathe slowly, deliberately, and watched her chest rise and fall in rapid, pained gasps. Wounded, exhausted, terrified under all that rage. He mimicked her roar. It came out wrong, his human vocal cords unable to produce the exact resonance, but he tried. A low sound from deep in his chest, building in intensity, then cutting off sharply the way hers had. The alien froze. Her ears, he only now noticed the furred, mobile ears set high on her head, swiveled forward. "Rush, what the hell are you doing?" Kane hissed. Dominic ignored him. The alien took a step forward, her movements suddenly cautious rather than aggressive. He repeated the vocalization, adding what he hoped was the right tonal shift at the end. A question, maybe, or acknowledgement. She responded. This time her roar was different, shorter, with a questioning lilt that made his initial assessment crystallize into certainty. Language. Actual, structured language. His pulse quickened with excitement that overpowered his fear. He stood slowly, keeping his hands visible and open. She watched him with an intensity that felt physical, her amber eyes tracking every micro-movement. He took one careful step forward. She didn't retreat. Another step. Her claws flexed but didn't extend fully. They were 3 meters apart when her legs buckled. She caught herself on one knee, a sound escaping her that was unmistakably pain. Blood had started seeping through the hasty bandaging Dr. Tanaka's team had applied before she'd awakened. The wounds across her torso were severe, possibly internal damage that their scans had missed in their rush to stabilize her. Dominic moved without thinking, closing the distance between them. She looked up at him, and for the first time he saw past the rage and fear to something deeper. Confusion, desperation, a plea in those alien eyes that transcended species. "Dr. Tanaka to Medical 3, he said into his comm, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "She's hurt badly. I need you here now." "Is she restrained?" Tanaka's response was immediate. "No, and she won't be. Just come, slowly, no sudden moves." The alien's breathing had become labored. She swayed, and Dominic reached out instinctively to steady her. His hand touched her shoulder, warm, the skin feeling like suede over steel, and she flinched. But she didn't pull away, didn't attack. Instead, her eyes widened, and she made a sound that was almost a gasp. Then she collapsed. Dominic caught her, or tried to. She was heavier than he expected, dense with muscle and alien physiology. They went down together in a controlled fall, him cushioning her as best he could. Her head lolled against his chest, unconscious, her breathing shallow. "Med team, move," Kane ordered, his security officers surging forward with a stretcher. Dr. Tanaka appeared moments later, scanner already active and sweeping over the alien's body. The doctor's expression darkened as data flooded the display. "These wounds," Tanaka said quietly, "they're not from a crash. They're systematic, precise. Someone did this to her deliberately." A chill ran down Dominic's spine. He looked down at the alien warrior's face, peaceful in unconsciousness, and saw the scars he'd missed before. Old ones layered beneath the fresh wounds. A pattern of suffering. "The distress beacon," he said. "We need to analyze it again. Right now." 20 minutes later, Dominic stood in the communications lab with Commander Brennan and Kane, staring at the decoded signal analysis Dr. Tanaka's team had extracted from the beacon's core. "It's a lure," Brennan said, her voice tight. "The beacon was designed to draw in rescue ships." "And we took the bait," Kane added. Dominic's display showed 3 ships entering sensor range, their profiles matching nothing in the known databases. Fast, armed, and heading straight for the station. "How long?" Brennan asked. 6 hours, Kane said, maybe 5. Brennan turned to Dominic. "You said she was trying to communicate. Can you make her talk? We need to know what's coming for us." Dominic thought of those amber eyes, the desperation in them, the systematic torture Tanaka had found. Whatever was hunting her had done terrible things, and now those hunters were coming for the station. For all of them. "I can try," he said. "But, Commander, I don't think she's the enemy here." "Then who is?" The sensor display pulsed as the approaching ships accelerated. Dominic had no answer, not yet, but he would find one. He had to. Because in 6 hours, 3 warships would arrive, and the only person who knew why was an alien warrior who spoke in roars and pain. And Dominic Rush was going to learn her language before time ran out. The reinforced medical bay felt more like a cage than a treatment room. Transparent aluminum walls, double thickness, rated for containment of hostile xenofauna. Kesara, they'd found the designation in her pod's fragmented data core, lay on the bed, her chest rising and falling as Dr. Tanaka's machines worked to stabilize her injuries. Dominic stood outside the containment area, reviewing the linguistic analysis he'd compiled during her rampage. Audio files played through his earpiece, her vocalizations isolated and mapped. Patterns emerged like constellations forming from scattered stars. "You're wasting time," Kane said from behind him. "We should be evacuating." "The nearest safe harbor is 9 hours at maximum burn. We don't have 9 hours. So we're supposed to trust that she'll help us? That thing nearly killed my people." "That woman was tortured and terrified. There's a difference." Commander Brennan entered the bay, her face drawn. "Rush, I'm giving you 4 hours," she said. "If you can't get intel by then, we're loading everyone into the escape pods." "Understood. The crew is frightened. If this goes wrong..." "She won't. You can't know that." "Yes, Commander, I can." Inside the containment area, Kesara's eyes opened. Dominic saw it happen through the transparent wall. One moment unconscious, the next her amber eyes were focused and aware. Her breathing changed, controlled now, measured. He moved to the containment door and keyed the access panel. Behind him, Kane's hand went to his sidearm. "What are you doing?" The door sealed behind him with a hiss. Kesara's eyes tracked him as he approached slowly, hands visible and empty. She remained still, but tension coiled through her frame. He stopped 3 meters away and lowered himself to sit cross-legged. Her brow furrowed and her head tilted slightly. Dominic produced the vocalization he'd attempted earlier, the one that had made her pause. Her ears swiveled forward. He tried a variation, dropping the pitch. Nothing. He tried raising it. Her pupils dilated slightly. Progress. For 20 minutes he worked through iterations, building a basic vocabulary and observing her responses. She remained motionless, watching him with intensity that made his skin prickle. Then she sat up. Dr. Tanaka's voice crackled through the speaker. "Rush, her vitals are spiking." Dominic held up a hand. She swung her legs off the bed, moving with fluid grace despite her injuries. She stood, nearly 2 meters tall, and approached him. He remained seated. This close, he could see the subtle variations in her striping, darker around her face and shoulders, the scars, old and new, that mapped violence across her body. She knelt in front of him, bringing them to eye level. The heat of her body radiated across the small space. She smelled of something sharp and organic, with an undertone of copper. Kesara made a sound softer than before, almost questioning. She raised one hand, claws retracted, palm up, waiting. Dominic's heart hammered. He lifted his own hand and mirrored her position. She moved faster than he could track, grasping his wrist. Not violently, but firmly. Heat bloomed where her skin touched his. Then she pressed his palm flat against her shoulder, directly over one of the torture scars. Pain exploded through his awareness. Not his pain, hers. It flooded through the contact point, every nerve ending in her shoulder lighting up in his mind. He could feel the old wound, how it had been inflicted with deliberate precision. The memory burned into her flesh. He gasped but didn't pull away. Understanding crashed over him. This was how she communicated, through sensation, through shared experience. Her species didn't just describe emotion, they transmitted it. Kesara released his hand and made another sound. She pointed to a different scar on her forearm, then looked at him expectantly. Dominic reached out, hands trembling, and touched the scar. Burning, something hot cutting through flesh, held deliberately while she was restrained, the fear and rage and helplessness. But underneath, defiance. She'd refused to break. When he pulled back, his face was wet. Kesara made a low, rumbling sound that felt like approval. She touched her chest over her heart, then reached out to touch his in the same place. The sensation was warm, comforting. Gratitude. Relief at finally being understood. "My God," Dr. Tanaka whispered over the speaker. "That's direct neurological transmission." A species that communicated through shared sensation would experience the world completely differently. Every interaction intimate, every conversation a merging of experience. No wonder sedatives hadn't worked. They'd dulled her senses, made communication impossible. She'd awakened in sensory isolation and reacted with the only option left. Violence. Kesara stood and moved to the medical console. She tapped it with one claw, making frustrated sounds. Then she turned back and gestured for him to approach. He joined her. She took his hand and placed it on her temple. Images rushed through him. A throne room, elegant and alien, Kesara in ornate armor standing guard, other Syrathi warriors. Then darkness, a secret chamber, sensations of conspiracy, plans through shared touch, infiltration, human colonies, conquest disguised as diplomacy. Discovery, her commander Velkros finding her outside the chamber, fury through his touch, the order for her silence, permanent. The torture chamber, days or weeks. They couldn't kill her outright, she was royal guard, but they could make her disappear, make her suffer until she broke. Except she hadn't. She'd escaped, stole a fighter pod, sent a distress beacon, a gamble that someone would help, that she could warn them. The beacon was genuine, but Velkros had found her signal first. The memories released him. Dominic staggered back. Kesara caught him, her touch cool now, soothing. "Commander," Dominic said hoarsely, "I need you in here." Brennan entered cautiously, Kane flanking her with weapon drawn. Kesara's eyes tracked the plasma pistol and a low growl rumbled. "It's all right," Dominic said, positioning himself between them. "She's not the threat, she's the warning." He explained what he'd learned, the conspiracy, the coming infiltration, the torture she'd endured. "And the ships?" Brennan asked. Kesara made a sharp sound and pointed at the chronometer, then held up 3 clawed fingers. She touched Dominic's hand. He felt her certainty. 3 ships, Velkros' squadron, coming to finish what they'd started. "They're coming for her," Dominic said, "and they'll kill anyone who might have heard what she knows." "We can't evacuate in time," Kane said. "Even if we scatter, they'll hunt the pods." Kesara grabbed Dominic's hand and pressed it against her chest. Tactical information flooded him. Syrathi combat doctrine, ship layouts, weapon systems, weaknesses. And something else. Fierce determination mixed with something that made his chest tighten. She was willing to fight, to defend this station, these humans who'd finally understood her. "She can help us," Dominic said. "She knows their tactics, their technology. But, Commander, there's something else. The way she communicates requires physical contact. The more we work together, the more synchronized we'll become. Dr. Tanaka detected it. My neurology is adapting. I'm starting to sense her emotions without touch. The changes might be permanent." Kesara made a low, worried sound. She touched his face gently. Concern. Guilt. By teaching him her language, she was changing him into something between human and Syrathi. "Do it," Brennan said. "Commander?" "We need every advantage. If this bonding helps us survive, then do it." Dominic looked at Kesara. Her amber eyes held his. He felt the question even without touch. Was he willing? He took her hand and transmitted his answer the only way that mattered, through sensation, through certainty. Yes. Her eyes widened and she made a sound that could only be described as a purr. It resonated in his chest, warm and intimate. "We have 4 hours," Brennan said. "Rush, Kesara, work together. Kane, get our defenses ready." As they left, Dominic and Kesara remained standing close, hands joined. He could feel her presence in his mind, faint but growing stronger, her determination, her gratitude, and underneath something deeper that neither had words for. The bond was forming, and in 3 hours, Velkros would arrive to find his prey had found something worth fighting for. 2 hours until Velkros arrived, and Dominic could taste Kesara's emotions like copper on his tongue. They stood in the station's tactical center, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship schematics and defensive positions. His hand rested on her arm. Constant contact now, the bond deepening with every passing minute. Through their connection, he felt her analyzing the station's layout, her tactical mind processing angles and vulnerabilities with warrior precision. "Here," she said. The word emerged rough and accented, shaped by a throat not designed for human speech. But it was a word. English. She'd been listening to him speak for hours, absorbing the language through their bond as he'd absorbed hers. Dominic's heart skipped. She pointed to a corridor junction on the hologram, and he felt her reasoning flood through their contact. Choke point, limited angles of fire, perfect ambush position. "You're learning fast," he said. She turned to him, and the intensity in her amber eyes made his breath catch. She touched his face, and he felt what she couldn't yet say in words. Amazement at how quickly they'd synchronized, wonder at finding someone who could understand her, and something warmer that made his pulse quicken. "You change," she managed, her clawed finger tracing along his temple. "Feel it." He did feel it. His senses had sharpened over the past hours. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds more distinct. He could smell the station's recycled air with new clarity, detect the subtle shift in Kesara's scent when her emotions changed. His reflexes had quickened, his body responding faster than conscious thought. "Does it hurt?" Dr. Tanaka asked from across the tactical center. "No," Dominic said. "It feels like waking up." Kesara made a pleased rumbling sound that he felt through their connection, pride, satisfaction, and beneath it a current of desire that sent heat through his veins. Commander Brennan entered with Kane, both in tactical gear. "Status?" Brennan asked. "We've identified 3 optimal defensive positions," Dominic said. "Kesara knows how Syrathi boarding teams operate. They'll breach here, here, and here." He highlighted points on the hologram. Kesara's hand tightened on his arm, and tactical data flowed through their bond. He translated into words, explaining Syrathi combat doctrine, how they use sensory warfare, overwhelming opponents with coordinated attacks that exploited their ability to feel each other's positions. "They fight like a single organism," he said, "but that's also their weakness. Disrupt their sensory network and they lose coordination." "How do we disrupt it?" Kane asked. Kesara grabbed Dominic's hand and pressed it flat against the display. Images flooded him. Electromagnetic frequencies, specific wavelengths that interfered with Syrathi neural communication. "We can generate interference using the station's comm arrays," Dominic translated. "It won't stop them completely, but it'll slow them down, make them rely on visual communication." "Can you set it up?" Brennan asked. "Give me 30 minutes. The commander nodded. "Do it. Kane, get your teams in position. Everyone else evacuates in 1 hour." As Brennan and Kane left, Kesara pulled Dominic close. Her touch was urgent now, conveying something beyond tactics. Fear, not for herself, but for him. She'd survived Velkros before by running. Fighting him directly was nearly suicide. "I know," Dominic said softly, cupping her face, "but I'm not letting him take you." She made a sound that was half growl, half purr, then she kissed him. It wasn't like kissing a human. Her lips were different, her mouth structured for fangs and alien speech, but the sensation that flooded through their bond was unmistakable. Hunger, need, a merging that went deeper than physical touch. He could feel what she felt, the heat building in her blood, the way her heart raced, and she could feel him, his desire answering hers, the bond between them pulling tighter. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Later," she said, the word barely more than a whisper. "After. Promise." "Promise," he agreed. They spent the next 30 minutes preparing the station's defenses. Dominic worked at the communications array, modifying the frequency outputs while Kesara stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, feeding him technical knowledge through their bond. Her understanding of Syrathi technology merged with his grasp of human systems, creating solutions neither could have achieved alone. Dr. Tanaka appeared in the doorway. "Rush, I need to show you something." Dominic looked up. The doctor's expression was grave. "The bonding process is accelerating," Tanaka said, displaying a medical readout. "Your neural pathways are restructuring faster than I anticipated. In another few hours, the changes will be irreversible." "I know," Dominic said. "Do you? Because once this completes, you won't be fully human anymore. Your physiology, your neurology, even your lifespan, everything will be altered." Kesara's hand tightened on his shoulder. Through their bond, he felt her anguish. She hadn't wanted this for him. "Would you undo it?" Dominic asked, turning to face Tanaka. "If you could reverse the process right now, would you recommend it?" The doctor hesitated. "Medically, yes, but tactically, you two are more effective together than our entire security force. Whatever this bond is doing, it works." "Then we see it through." Tanaka nodded and left. Kesara pulled Dominic around to face her, both hands on his shoulders. She pressed her forehead against his, and images flowed between them. Not memories this time, but possibilities. A future where they survived this, where they found a place together, neither fully human nor fully Syrathi, but something new. "Want this," she said, "want you, but fear. Fear what I take from you. You're not taking anything, Dominic said. I'm choosing this, choosing you. She made a sound that was almost a sob. Then she kissed him again, deeper this time, and the bond flared between them. He could feel her warrior's heart, fierce and loyal, could feel the loneliness she'd carried, a royal guard who'd never found anyone who understood her language beyond the superficial. Could feel her falling into something that terrified and exhilarated her. And she could feel him, his determination, his curiosity that had driven him to study alien languages, his absolute certainty that understanding her was worth any price. The kiss broke when the station's alarms blared. Incoming vessels detected, the automated system announced. Proximity 30 minutes. Dominic and Kesara moved as one, heading back to the tactical center. Brennan was already there. They're early, the commander said. Velkros is impatient, Dominic replied. He wants to finish this before she can spread what she knows. On the hologram, 3 Syrathi warships appeared, sleek and predatory. They moved in perfect formation. Kesara's grip on Dominic's arm became painful. Through their bond, he felt her recognition. One of those ships was Velkros's personal vessel, the Rendering Claw. She'd served aboard it before her exile. He brought his personal guard, Dominic said. Elite warriors, the best the Syrathi have. How many? Kane asked. 30, maybe 40. We have 20 security personnel, Kane said. Most have never faced real combat. They won't need to face all of them, Dominic said. Kesara's tactical knowledge organized in his mind. The Syrathi will send 3 boarding teams of 10. They'll expect minimal resistance. This is supposed to be a research station. So we hit them hard at the breach points, Brennan said. No, Dominic countered. We let them in. Kane's eyes narrowed. The interference will disorient them, but they'll adapt. If we meet them at the breach points, they'll regroup and overwhelm us. But if we let them spread into the station, into the corridors, Kesara and I identified. We ambush them on our terms, Brennan finished. Exactly. Kesara nodded, then spoke directly to Brennan, her English still rough but comprehensible. Velkros will come for me, personal. He not send others to finish, his honor demands. Then we give him what he wants, Dominic said. Kesara and I draw him out. While his attention is on us, your teams take out his boarding parties. That's a suicide mission, Kane objected. No, Kesara said, her hand finding Dominic's. Is trap. He not understand what Dominic is now. What we are together, his mistake. Through their bond, Dominic felt her certainty. Velkros was a traditional warrior, bound by rigid honor codes. He wouldn't expect a human to fight like Syrathi, wouldn't expect the perfect coordination that the bond provided. They had one advantage, surprise. 15 minutes, Brennan announced. Everyone to positions and rush Kesara. Don't get yourselves killed, that's an order. Yes, ma'am, Dominic said. As the tactical center emptied, he and Kesara remained standing before the hologram, watching the Syrathi ships close in. His heart pounded, adrenaline sharpening his already enhanced senses. He could feel Kesara's battle readiness through their bond, her body priming for combat. She turned to him and placed both hands on his face. The sensation was overwhelming, her absolute trust, her fierce protectiveness, and beneath it all, something that felt like love. After, she said, we have after. After, he agreed. Then the first breach charges detonated and the station shuddered as the Syrathi came for blood. The breach charges tore through the station's hull like claws through flesh. Dominic felt the decompression alert spike, compartments sealing automatically as atmosphere vented into space. 3 breach points, exactly where Kesara had predicted. They stood in Corridor Junction 7, the ambush point they'd chosen. Kesara had stripped off the medical gown hours ago, replacing it with tactical gear from the station's armory. The black composite armor fit her poorly, designed for human proportions, but she moved in it like water. Dominic wore similar armor, though his hands trembled slightly as he checked the plasma rifle Kane had issued him. Through the bond, he felt Kesara's calm, her warrior's focus, and drew strength from it. First team breaching Deck 3, Kane's voice crackled through the comm. 10 contacts moving fast. Kesara's hand found Dominic's, and tactical awareness flooded through their connection. She could feel the Syrathi warriors through the station's vibrations, their footfalls transmitted through metal. Her lips pulled back in a snarl. "Second team, deck 5, Kane reported, heading toward life support. "Let them," Dominic said. "Draw them deeper." The interference generators hummed to life, filling the station with electromagnetic noise that disrupted Syrathi sensory communication. Through Kesara, Dominic felt the disruption like static across his skin, uncomfortable but not debilitating. For the boarding teams, it would be worse. "Third team breaching deck 7, Kane said. "Your deck, Rush." "Copy." Kesara released his hand and moved to the corridor's far end, her movements utterly silent despite her size. She positioned herself in the shadows, claws extended, every muscle coiled. Dominic took the opposite position, rifle raised, and waited. The Syrathi boarding team rounded the corner in tight formation. 10 warriors, each similar to Kesara in build but marked with clan tattoos across their striped skin. Their weapons were elegant, blade and energy hybrid designs that could cut or burn. The lead warrior's nostrils flared, scenting the air. His head turned toward Kesara's position. She struck first. She moved like lightning, closing the distance in 2 bounds. Her claws found the lead warrior's throat before he could vocalize, the killing strike precise and brutal. The warrior collapsed, blood spraying across the corridor floor. The team reacted instantly, but their coordination was off. The interference disrupted their ability to feel each other's positions, forcing them to rely on sight and sound alone. It gave Dominic the opening he needed. The plasma bolt caught the second warrior in the chest, burning through armor. The warrior screamed, a sound that was communication and agony combined, and the rest of the team scattered, seeking cover. But Dominic wasn't alone anymore. Through the bond, he felt Kesara's position without seeing her, felt her next move before she made it. They fought as one organism, his tactical thinking guiding her warrior instincts, her combat prowess executing his strategies. She vaulted over a fallen warrior, using his body as a springboard to reach the next target. Her claws raked across armor, finding weak points with anatomical precision. Meanwhile, Dominic provided covering fire, his shots forcing the Syrathi to expose themselves to Kesara's attacks. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 10 Syrathi warriors lay dead or dying in the corridor. Kesara stood among them, blood streaking her arms and face, her chest heaving. Through their bond, Dominic felt her grief. These had been her people once, warriors she'd trained alongside. But beneath the grief was resolve. Team 3 neutralized, Dominic reported into the comm. Teams 1 and 2 engaged, Kane responded. We've got them pinned at the breach points. Don't let them regroup. Press the advantage while they're disrupted. Kesara moved to his side, her hand finding his arm. The contact steadied them both. She pointed down the corridor toward the main breach point. Velkros, she said. He comes now. Feel him. Dominic nodded. Through her, he could sense it too, a presence moving through the station with predatory intent. Velkros hadn't come with the initial boarding teams. He'd waited, watching how his forces performed. Now he knew something was wrong. "Commander," Dominic said into the comm, "the primary target is moving, heading to Deck 7, Section 12. "Acknowledged," Brennan replied. "That section's yours." Dominic and Kesara moved through the corridor, stepping over the bodies of the fallen Syrathi. The station felt different now, charged with violence, the air thick with the smell of burned flesh and spilled blood. They reached Section 12, a large cargo bay that Kesara had identified as optimal fighting ground. High ceilings, multiple levels of catwalks, plenty of cover. A place where mobility and tactical thinking mattered more than numbers. Velkros was already there. He stood in the center of the bay, nearly half a meter taller than Kesara, his striped skin marked with intricate patterns that denoted his rank. His armor was ceremonial as much as functional, black and silver, etched with Syrathi glyphs that Dominic could now read through his bond with Kesara. The Syrathi commander's amber eyes locked onto Kesara, and his lips pulled back in a snarl. "Traitor," Velkros said in Syrathi, the word transmitted through a low, rumbling vocalization. "You bring shame to the royal guard." Kesara stepped forward, Dominic at her side. She responded in the same language. I bring truth, you bring only death. Velkros's gaze shifted to Dominic, and confusion flickered across his features. He could sense the bond, could feel the wrongness of a human speaking Syrathi sensory language. What have you done? Velkros asked, his tone shifting to revulsion. You've contaminated yourself with this creature? I've bonded with him, Kesara replied. Something you would never understand. You see only duty and honor. You've forgotten what it means to truly connect. Velkros's claws extended, each one easily 15 centimeters long and wickedly sharp. Then I will cleanse you of this corruption, he said, and I will destroy the human who dared to touch you. He moved. Dominic barely tracked the motion. Velkros was faster than the warriors they'd fought earlier. But through the bond, Kesara's instincts merged with Dominic's tactical awareness. He dove left as Kesara went right, both rolling to cover as Velkros's claws carved through the space they'd occupied. The commander pursued Kesara, recognizing her as the greater immediate threat. His attacks were precise and brutal, each strike aimed at vital points. Kesara deflected with her own claws, the sound of chitin on chitin ringing through the cargo bay. Dominic raised his rifle and fired. The plasma bolt caught Velkros in the shoulder, burning through armor. The commander snarled and turned, his attention splitting between two targets, exactly what they'd planned. Fighting Velkros alone, either of them would die in seconds. But together, bonded and coordinated, they could divide his focus, make him fight on two fronts simultaneously. Kesara pressed her attack while Velkros was distracted, her claws finding purchase on his back. He roared and spun, backhanding her across the cargo bay. She hit a support pillar hard enough to dent the metal. Dominic felt her pain through the bond, a lance of agony that made him gasp. But Kesara was already moving again, using the pillar as a springboard to launch herself at Velkros from a different angle. The fight became a deadly dance. Dominic provided covering fire and tactical guidance, his human perspective seeing openings that Syrathi combat doctrine wouldn't exploit. Kesara executed with warrior precision. Together, they pushed Velkros back, forcing him to defend against attacks from multiple angles. But the commander was adapting. He began predicting their coordination, using his experience to anticipate how bonded pairs fought. His strikes became more calculated, less reactive. He caught Kesara's arm mid-slash, his claws digging deep into her flesh. Dominic felt her agony explode through their bond and dropped his rifle. The weapon was too slow, too limited. He needed to be closer. He ran forward, pulling the combat knife from his belt. Velkros saw him coming and laughed, a harsh barking sound. The human thinks he's Syrathi, Velkros said. Come then, let me teach you how we die. The commander released Kesara and focused on Dominic. His claws swept in a wide arc, fast enough to blur. But Dominic's enhanced reflexes caught the motion. He ducked under the strike and drove his knife into Velkros's thigh, aiming for the major artery. Kesara's anatomical knowledge revealed. Blood sprayed hot across his hands. Velkros's eyes widened in shock. He'd expected a clumsy human attack, something easily countered. Not this precise, anatomically informed strike. Kesara recovered and hit Velkros from behind, her claws sinking into his sides. The commander tried to throw her off, but Dominic was already moving again, his knife finding another vital point in Velkros's abdomen. The Syrathi commander staggered, blood pouring from multiple wounds. He looked at Dominic with something that might have been respect. Impossible, Velkros managed. No human could. I'm not just human anymore, Dominic said in perfect Syrathi. I'm something new, something you couldn't predict. Velkros collapsed to his knees. Kesara stood before him. Your honor demanded you come personally, she said. That honor killed you. The commander's eyes glazed, and he fell forward, dead. Dominic and Kesara stood in the blood-soaked cargo bay, their breathing synchronized, their hearts beating in rhythm through the bond. Around them, the sounds of fighting had stopped. Kane's voice crackled through the comm. All boarding teams neutralized. Station is secure. Kesara turned to Dominic, and the emotion that flooded through their bond was overwhelming. Relief, gratitude, love. She pulled him close, and he wrapped his arms around her, both of them trembling with adrenaline. Crash. After, she whispered against his neck. We have after. Yes, he said, we do. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and blood. Dr. Tanaka worked quietly, sealing the deep gashes in Kesara's arm where Velkros's claws had torn through muscle and tendon. Kesara sat still, her amber eyes fixed on Dominic as he leaned against the wall across from her, his own wounds already bandaged. Through their bond, he felt the sting of each suture, the burn of the synthetic flesh knitting her tissue back together. But beneath the pain was something else, a warmth that had nothing to do with injury and everything to do with the way she looked at him. "You should rest," Tanaka said, finishing the last seal. "Both of you. Your bodies have been through hell." "How long?" Dominic asked. Tanaka knew what he meant. The doctor pulled up a holographic display showing his neural scans, the pathways that had restructured themselves over the past hours. "The transformation is complete," Tanaka said quietly. "Your neurology, your sensory processing, even your cellular structure, it's all changed. You're not human anymore, Rush. Not entirely." "But I'm not Syrathi either," Dominic said. "No, you're something in between, something new." Kesara made a low sound, half purr, half growl. She stood and crossed to him, her movement still graceful despite her injuries. Her hand found his face, and the sensation that flooded through their bond was fierce and possessive. "Mine," she said in English, the word carrying layers of meaning that no translation could capture, "and I am yours." Dominic pulled her close, breathing in her scent, sharp and organic, now as familiar as his own. The bond pulsed between them, their heartbeats synchronizing until he couldn't tell where his pulse ended and hers began. "The Syrathi fleet is retreating," Commander Brennan said from the doorway. "Without Velkros, they've lost their command structure. They're falling back to their territory." "They'll return," Kesara said, not taking her eyes off Dominic. "When they learn what happened here, when they know a human killed their commander." "Let them come," Brennan replied. "We'll be ready, and we'll have advance warning thanks to you." Kesara turned to face the commander, and Dominic felt her uncertainty through the bond. She'd betrayed her people to save his. She'd killed warriors she'd trained alongside. The weight of that choice pressed against her consciousness like a physical thing. "You saved this station," Brennan continued. "You saved 200 lives. That counts for something." "Does it count enough?" Kesara asked, her English improving with each word. "When my people come, they will not negotiate, they will not listen, they will see only a traitor who must be silenced." "Then we make sure they can't silence you," Dominic said. "We take what you know about their infiltration plans and we warn every human colony in range. We turn your intelligence into action." Brennan nodded. "Earth Command is already dispatching a carrier group to escort you both back to headquarters. They want a full debriefing on Syrathi capabilities and intentions." "They want to study me," Kesara said flatly. "They want to understand you," Brennan corrected. "There's a difference. But Rush, they'll want to study you too. What you've become, it's unprecedented." Dominic felt Kesara's anxiety spike through the bond. The thought of being separated, even temporarily, caused her physical pain. He took her hand and squeezed gently. "We go together," he said. "Non-negotiable." Brennan studied them both, her expression softening slightly. "I'll make sure that's in the report. You've earned that much." After the commander left, Dominic and Kesara remained in the medical bay, neither willing to break contact. Dr. Tanaka had retreated to give them privacy, the automated systems monitoring their vitals remotely. "What happens now?" Kesara asked quietly. "Now we figure out what comes next," Dominic said, "together." She moved closer, her body pressing against his. The heat between them had been building since the cargo bay, adrenaline and relief, and something deeper transforming into pure need. Her lips found his, and the kiss was hungry, demanding. Through the bond, sensations amplified and merged. He felt what she felt, the desire coursing through her blood, the way her skin ached for his touch. And she felt him, his want matching hers, the bond pulling them together with magnetic force. His hands traced the stripes along her arms, following the patterns that marked her as Syrathi. Her claws retracted completely as she touched him, her fingers surprisingly gentle as they explored his face, his neck, the pulse point at his throat. "I dreamed of this," she whispered against his mouth. "In the torture chamber. when they hurt me. I dreamed that someone would understand, would speak my language, would see me as more than a weapon. You're so much more, Dominic said, his voice rough with emotion. You're brilliant and fierce and... She kissed him again, silencing his words. The bond flared between them, sensation bleeding into sensation until he couldn't tell where his pleasure ended and hers began. They moved together toward the medical bed, their bodies already knowing the rhythm, the bond guiding them. Her armor came off first, then his. Each revelation of skin was accompanied by touches that communicated more than words ever could. She traced the scars he'd earned in the fighting, her touch gentle and reverent. He mapped the old torture marks across her body, his fingers telling her that he understood, that he shared her pain, that he would never let anyone hurt her again. When they finally came together, the bond exploded into something transcendent. It wasn't just physical, it was neurological, emotional, spiritual. Every nerve ending lit up, every sensation magnified and shared. He felt her pleasure as his own, and she felt his, the feedback loop building until they couldn't distinguish between giving and receiving. They moved together, their bodies finding a rhythm that was neither human nor Syrathi, but something entirely new. She was strength and grace and predatory power. He was strategy and adaptation and stubborn determination. Together, they were complete. The climax hit them simultaneously, crashing through the bond like a tidal wave. Dominic felt his consciousness blur with hers, their minds merging so completely that for a moment they were one being, one awareness, one soul, split between two bodies. When they finally collapsed together, both trembling and gasping, Kesara made a sound that was pure contentment. She curled against him, her head resting on his chest, her tail, he only now noticed she had a tail, wrapping around his leg possessively. After, she murmured, we have after. We do, he agreed, his fingers tracing patterns through her striped fur, and it's just beginning. Through the viewport, he could see the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there was Earth, and beyond that, the Syrathi Empire. Two civilizations on the brink of conflict, two species that didn't understand each other. But they understood, he and Kesara. They'd learned each other's languages, felt each other's pain and joy, merged into something that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. Maybe that was enough. Maybe understanding could spread the way the bond had spread through him, one connection at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice to listen instead of fight. Or maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe the coming war was inevitable. But they would face it together, neither human nor Syrathi, but something new, something that proved understanding was possible, even between the most different of beings. Kesara's breathing deepened as she drifted toward sleep, the bond settling into a gentle pulse between them. Dominic held her close, feeling her heartbeat against his ribs, and knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. He'd sacrificed his humanity to understand her, and in return he'd gained something far more valuable. He'd gained her, and she'd gained him. And together, they'd shown that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't violence or strategy or superior technology. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to speak someone's language, to truly hear them, to see them not as alien or enemy, but as someone worth understanding. Armies couldn't stop the creature, but one human had simply spoken to her, and everything had changed.